Hi, everyone, and welcome to another live stream. Today, I am honored to have as a guest my good friend and amazing artist, John Nevarez. He worked at Pixar, Disney. He's an amazing story artist, amazing draftsman, maybe even most of all, one of the kindest persons that I've ever met. So, welcome, John.
Thanks, Ryder. That was awesome. I'm humbled by that intro. Thank you.
Oh, I meant every word of it.
Thanks, man.
So
Appreciate it.
how are you doing in these crazy times?
We're good. We're good. We're just outside of San Francisco. Things are pretty good up here. I think for the most part, people have done a good job, like respecting social distancing and complying with the quarantine. So I know the governor just announced like first steps toward reopening.
Okay.
And I think the cases, I really haven't checked the cases just yet, but I think we're at a good enough spot that I don't think they're growing. I could be wrong, but it sounds like they're already making steps toward reopening. That's a good sign. So,
Yeah.
but for the most part, we're all good.
Well, that's good. Good. Glad
Yeah,
to see that you're still healthy. And
healthy, longer
so
hair.
and you yeah, yeah, my beard is growing longer and longer,
It
and
looks good on you, man.
the gray hair is getting more and more. I don't know.
Good.
It every every inch it grows, it's becoming grayer.
It looks more distinguished. I like it.
Well, for in case someone's wondering what's happening to our backgrounds, we were just having fun, playing with the background effects. So what you see behind me here is a drawing John did, and John has just blurred his background.
I
So
try to do
that's
about it.
if you notice anything strange about it, that's what it is. So
Looks good, man.
so I wanted to talk about motivation today, and I know that at a certain point you were working for Pixar. It might be best if you tell this story yourself, but from what I remember is that you worked there, and that was up until then basically your life goal, your dream to work at Pixar, and then when you had to leave, that dream kind of collapsed. And I was just wondering, what happened there with motivation while you were working there and the moment after? How did you get back on your feet again and found motivation to keep going?
Yeah, I was at Pixar from 2009. It was like February I started, and right um, toward the middle, maybe October of 2013, I found out I was going to get laid off. I'm not really sure exactly the specifics, but as far as I know, it was a business decision where Pixar was they needed to lay off folks. So they laid off 55 folks system wide or company wide, I should say, from every department, and there were five from the art department, and I was one of them. And yeah, it was a bummer because I actually, I just like everybody else, people always say, or most people say that their dream is to go to Pixar. And I actually, I was lucky enough to be there, and it was awesome. I worked with great folks, and yeah, I was working with, great projects and stuff. And then, yeah, they said that they had to lay people off, and I was one of them, and I didn't know what to do because my dream was to retire there or to stay there as
Yeah,
long
yeah,
as
yeah.
possible. So I my option was, do I just stay um, at I mean, do I stay up in the Bay Area and try my hand at freelance, or do I go to LA where I'm from and just kind of work in LA, which isn't bad, it's awesome. But we had planted roots up here. Me and my wife and my daughter, she was when she moved up here, she was 6, and she'd been, we've been up here for like 5 years, and she loved the schools and everything. And we were just having, we loved it here. So it was a tough decision. And so what happened was I talked to my two good friends, Pascal Campion and Steve Silver, and I knew they had been doing freelance for a while. And they said, and they encouraged me, like, yeah, it can be done, and that there were options there. So yeah, I decided to stay, and yeah. So basically, going back to the question, yeah, it bummed me out, But my motivation at the time was like, okay, how do I keep my family happy and how do I stay employed? And this was like 5, almost 6 years ago. It's not like the opportunities. There's so much more opportunities now to work remotely than there was back then. So it was a little scary because I didn't know about it. I was walking in kind of blind and kind of like, this is a new thing. And that was an adjustment. But my motivation was to keep my family safe. And at the time, it was hard because I was bummed. I didn't know what to do. But somehow it worked. It took time, but it worked. And then my motivation kind of changed where it's like, okay, how do I keep this going? And how can I still do what I do in a studio, but remotely? And then the motivation then was like, it's almost like going back to freelance before, but like how to keep the engine running and how to keep people, how to be on radar, how to stay
Okay, yeah.
like I'm here kind of thing.
So it sounds to me like at first the motivation really was just necessity. You had to make a living from and
Yeah.
it sounds like right now you're much more also then when you have all that on track, then suddenly there's more room for uh, deciding where you want to go within that, because you have to make a living. That's a thing you have to focus
Yeah.
on, and I think that's a good motivation, because that necessity will get you. It's like a kick in the butt. When
Oh, yeah.
you have to, uh, and I think it's interesting to I often get questioned, where do you get motivation? And um, I don't really need someone to motivate me. I'm always I don't know I'm always excited about drawing, and uh, I think it's important to try and find for yourself that necessity. If you don't find motivation, uh, you know, just like when you lose your job and you have to make money, what is something that for you is as important? What is it that you want to fight for? That's where your motivation lies, I think. Do you
Yeah.
agree?
I totally agree. I mean, there's this necessity thing where it's like, yeah, we do this for a living, so we need to bring in money. I mean, we got bills, we got obligations and responsibilities. We have to pay for things. Yeah. But for me, even more important or just as important is being happy. I so am lucky to do what I do, and I'm happy. I'm happy just drawing. I mean, when I got nothing to do at work, I'm usually drawing somewhere, and that makes me happy. And I learned. I was lucky enough when I was young to do something I didn't want to do. That I found that it's important to do something you love, just so you can stay happy and just kind of just fulfill something that's soul giving.
Yeah,
And I just
absolutely.
happen to do something that I get paid for doing it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. Well, I think that's incredibly important, because otherwise it's the difference between staying alive and living uh, your life. So
mhm.
um, I heard something yesterday. I don't remember. It's in Dutch, so I don't know if it translates, but it was uh, something like, "Do you live your suffering, or do you suffer your living?" Something like that. I don't know if it translates, but it was a Dutch quote where I thought you can choose to live the life that you want to live, and get fulfillment out of it, or
Mhm.
if you choose not even to be aware of it, or choose not to follow that path, you will
Yeah,
suffer, because then that's basically the difference when people when their parents tell them, you should be a doctor or a lawyer because you make money. But if you are miserable doing that, then what's the point? Then all it is it's making you money, but you're probably a bad lawyer or a bad doctor, because your heart and your passion is not in it. So
yeah,
I think it's incredibly important what you mentioned, that that being happy and doing the stuff that fulfills you, that's where you can find endless motivation, I think, because if that is who you are, what you get excited about, then there's no way you're going to stop doing that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I totally agree. In fact, I mean, I think you know the story, but yeah, I was set on becoming like an accountant or math. I was heavy into math out of high school, and I went to
Okay.
UC Santa Barbara as a math major, and I took that route because I convinced myself that doing math was a safe job, even though my passion wasn't it. Or actually, I was good in math at the time. I convinced myself that was the safe route. So my motivation was, okay, I could have a safe job, and all
Yeah.
my friends were math majors and engineering majors, so I kind of took that path. And then 2 years in, I flunked out, and I realized I hated math. I wasn't very good at math, and yeah, and then that kind of threw me into this kind of weird thing where what am I going to do with my life? And I don't know, and I took odd jobs here and there. But then that's where I figured out it's like, you know what? I need to do something that makes me happy. And then that's when I just, I realized drawing made me happy. And I wasn't really concerned about, I mean, I was still had odd jobs, but being happy it felt good. And that motivated me more than anything. And then later on, this was back in before 1990, then animation came about. I saw The Lion King, that got me happy. The Art of Lion King that motivated me because I saw these scratchy drawings. And then I'm like, oh, I made the connection, like I could make a living. And then I was motivated to like, maybe I can draw and make a living and do that. But then that was the first step because I didn't really go to an art school. I had to like do it all over again. But I was motivated then to like, oh, I could do something I love and get paid for it. Oh, okay. So that took several years to get there, but yeah.
It sounds like you. Well, I would imagine you when you learn that lesson by going into the path that isn't your passion, you will never forget about that anymore. Now you because you have experienced what it is doing something that you don't love. It made me think of I think I saw that probably on the internet somewhere where Jim Carrey talks about his father who did who went the safe road doing something he didn't love and he got fired. So and then he said, well, so apparently you can fail at doing something you don't love, so you might as well fail at something that you love.
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember that. That was awesome. Yeah. So and I heard somewhere else too, like, if you don't know what you want to do, it's like, well, do something you hate and do that for a while. Then you're gonna find what do you call it? The motivation, the ambition to really find something you do love. It kind of like you're kind of reversing course.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Do everything you can to not do what you're doing.
Yeah, I think in this time there are so many people who don't know exactly what they want to do, and maybe it's not even so much. Well, it's funny because I often hear from people, I do so many different things, I have so many different styles, and I was thinking about that today because to me it doesn't really feel like that. I'm just doing what I'm doing, and then I realized I'm doing something. To me it feels like one thing, but there's just not a box that it fits in. I created my own box. And I think when it comes to finding out what you want to do, people often start at the end. Do I want to be a character designer, or do I want to be a lawyer, or and they start with a box that society has already created. And in the Netherlands, there's this guy, and he literally created his own job because he has a passion for something. He looks at stains on the street, and so, for example, if a bucket of paint falls over, and you walk down the street and you see all those stains on the ground, and he looks at them and he sees this big round blob of paint, but then a little further there's another round blob of paint, and he starts thinking, how did that happen? Because the paint fell here, but I see this, and it's because in Amsterdam you have bicycles riding the street everywhere, and
Yeah.
so when the wheel hits the paint, that part gets a stain, but then there's this part, there is no paint on it, and then it touches the ground again, and
Yeah.
because that blob is a circle, and on the side, when people ride there, only a little part of their bike, of their wheel gets a stain of paint, so it
Yeah.
rotates. So you get this circle and then this other circle a little farther away. And, it's just crazy. But he can look at stains like that uh, and, and, and he knows what happened. And so now, he created his own job. He works for the police because when there are crime scenes, he just looks at the stains and he can tell them what happened. That's
He's like
so
a forensic. He's like a
yeah,
forensic artist or a
exactly,
detective.
exactly. But he created his own realm of what he can do, and I think you know he will always be motivated for the work he does because it started with his passion and not with the end result of the job title he wanted to have. And I think that's really important. And maybe mostly knowing what you want is requires the quality of listening to yourself and making little notes when you feel like I'm excited now. If you really don't know what to do, that just what are the moments where you get fired up and when you start to fall asleep, that's probably not where your interest lies. So
Yeah, it's like, yeah, what drives you?
yeah,
What
exactly.
gets you excited? And then you got to figure out like what can you do with it? I think.
Exactly, yeah. So I see that people are uh, dropping by to say hi.
Oh, cool.
Mario Grossu says, "Nice seeing you, John." Purple Flush has a question. Do you know about any Discord servers for character design and caricatures, or have you considered starting your own Discord server?
Well, so the question was, do I know of any online character design classes?
I don't know what Discord servers are. Do you?
Hmm. I don't either. I was
Okay.
assuming that was like an online course, but I could be wrong.
Okay. Well, Purple Flush, if you like to clarify, we can answer that question. I also remember already people already sent you some questions. Um, I have them here. So,
Okay.
what would your advice be for students who went to a for-profit art school that did graduate and did not get a great art education? Uh,
I would say it's never too late, and sometimes it just means okay, um, realizing like okay, maybe you didn't get the education you needed, so just like anything else, time goes by. So it's like give yourself maybe at least 6 months or a year, and then figure out what you need as far as what you need in the industry or what to get the jobs for. I remember there was a friend of ours. We had a realtor up here who sold us, who got a house for us, and she had, I think it was a nephew or a family friend. He was a young guy. He just graduated from, I think, somewhere in Pittsburgh, somewhere on the East Coast, and he took one of these for-profit schools, and he was there for like 4 years, and I think he was in debt something like $60,000 or $70,000, and he couldn't find a job. So he was looking everywhere, but no one would give him any feedback, and he was getting really discouraged, really just he was getting depressed. And so he was, the only job he could get was like an art store or something. So I said, yeah, I'd be happy to look at his work. Actually, she came by and said, would I look at his work? I said, yeah. So we corresponded on email. He sent me his link, and I was just like shocked because at best it was high school level, and I realized he wasn't given the they really didn't give me any exercises as far as like character design or composition or even like storyboarding or just how to compose a shot. Everything just was not strong. It was just very weak. And again, it was like high school level, and that got me mad because I was like, this school pretty much ripped him off.
Mm.
and totally took his money. And it pissed me off even more knowing that this kid is now $60,000-$70,000 in debt,
Wow.
is depressed, and his spirits have just been shattered or blown away that now he doesn't know what to do. So I was trying, I sent him a reply in the most sincere way. I just kind of told him, it's like, your school may not have had your best interest in mind. You may need to take some time to do new things, like do some exercises and this and that. And I was basically trying to tell him the most sincere, truthful way I could tell him, as far as, this, you need to redo things again. But also you need to give yourself time. You're not going to do it overnight. It's like, give yourself like 6 months to a year to try and coordinate like a campaign of new art with these things in mind.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I never heard from him again. I
Okay.
think he just kind of just got, I think he just maybe realized it wasn't for him. I don't know. But I've told other folks, it's like, you know what, you just gotta take some time, and just because you didn't get it at school, you gotta try and find a way to feed your portfolio to demonstrate or showcase what you can do for the industry. In a nutshell, if you want to be a character designer, it's good, solid characters that perform, that show appeal, that show range. Not only one character, but like a lineup of characters. You want to show them emoting. You want to show them in poses. You basically think of them as actors that are just performing. You want to show some personality, some kind of spirit. You want to have them come alive. Aside from the Jesus pose, everybody gets the Jesus pose. That's more of a production. That's one part of design. But it's like, you got to like feed the soul, and you got to like make these characters move. So it's like, think of characters in that aspect, but consider the whole show, not just one character, but consider a lineup. Because if you were in Pixar or Disney, that would be your job. Your job is like, okay, this week you're going to do maybe one or two characters, and then next week you're going to do secondary characters and some emotions and so forth. So that's that aspect. As far as background design, it's like, okay, you have to consider the set, but you have to have story in mind. You have to, these characters walk in and out, so you have to ask yourself, what's the information you're giving? Where are you at geographically? What's happening in the set emotionally? You have to consider the story. You have to you have to consider story in mind. Your set has to be synced, or should fulfill what's needed in the story. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Going back to what you mentioned, let me think. Losing my train of thought here. I was going to say, yes. I was going to say that don't expect the school to give you everything. That when you, even if you have the very best school ever, it's only 4 years, and you can only learn so much in 4 years. Even if you absorb everything that's humanly possible. Every character designer or background artist or any artist I know working in the industry is always improving their skills and is still learning. So don't expect the school to give you something and then you are there. You're the artist. It will, if it's a good school, it'll hopefully give you enough skills and so that you're good enough to enter the industry. But from there on, you will keep learning. And if you went to a school that didn't give you that, I went to school that didn't give me the skills that I had hoped they would give me. So I didn't let it stop me. I tried to stay eager because I wanted to learn, because it's, you pay money to a school, and so you can expect from them to give you a solid education. And I think it's really outrageous what you mentioned, if people are in debt and they haven't even learned to draw perspective or anything. That shouldn't be allowed. And because you can always comment on the quality of schools. There's always something to find that that you can get angry about, but it has to have some kind of balance where you feel, well, this is an education that takes the job I'm looking for seriously, and it provides me with enough information and ability to actually get a job in the industry. Um,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to measure because it's art, but on the other hand, it's art for a specific purpose,
Yeah.
because the industry has a certain standard. So that's pretty clear, and there are schools that that teach that. So
Yeah.
for
Yeah, I
yes.
know. I totally agree. You should go. You should go in with the expectation that just because school ends, that the learning stops. No, in fact, it's the reverse. It's like what all school does is it just kind of gives you a beginning course as far as like thinking of things and working as far as like assignments. Once school stops, then it's your job to continue that, but to do more. It's almost like you have to put your foot on the pedal and do a lot more. So all these things got you ready for assignments, all geared toward a story or some kind of like there's something you had to fulfill. So now your idea is like you have to just continue, doing more of that. Oh, I did an interior of a house. Okay, now let's see the exterior of the house. Okay,
Yeah.
let's see the neighborhood where that house is. Let's see inside that house, the one room that the hero goes in and finds their motivation, and so forth. You have to build the world out because that's what we do in the industry. We just do one. We have to fulfill the whole world. So you have to work on those terms. You have to have that in mind. So that means doing more.
Yeah, it's basically working backwards from real life. If I would walk into your house, maybe I see a plate from something that you have eaten, but you haven't cleaned it yet, or maybe there's a book that you want to read, and you put some papers in between because you don't want to forget about the page. But then all those little things, those little details. All those things have a reason. Maybe it's a really precious book to you, so you keep it in a special place. uh, when I walk into your room, all those things are there, but when you have to come up with a character or an environment for a
Mm-hmm.
world that doesn't exist yet, you have to think about all those little things. Why is this a certain way? Because everything says something about the person who lives in that house.
Yeah, it's their DNA. I
Yes.
mean, you should get an idea of who lives there, and what do they like, dislike, how they live, what kind their personality. Someone who's tidy has a tidy,
Yeah.
organized has an organized room. Someone
Exactly.
who is on the cuff, on the minute, doesn't really care, it might not be as tidy. And then you
Exactly.
also realize, socioeconomic, if they're poor, if they're rich, if
Yes.
they like a certain thing, that all feeds into, you have to, but that's part of a designer doing the research, but then it's all grounded in story, and you have to figure out, like, you're building a set, but why? Who is it
Yes.
for? And what's happening? And what's the mood? Because you can have a happy set, and then later on in the story, you still go to that same happy set, but it's a down moment. So now you have to consider
Yes.
lighting to really cue up that emotional, somberness. So
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So cool. You make me want to draw. Let me see. So let me see. Discord servers. The Draftsman podcast uh, uh, is doing a series on that exact topic. What to get out of art schools alternatives. Okay. Question: what do you do when you have an art block? Greetings from Puebla, Mexico, from
Hey, bye-bye.
Diana Arandi.
Okay, cool. What do I usually do two things, or maybe three things. I usually try and work through it. So maybe I get more research, or I try and like dig in harder and like try and work through the drawing. Most of the time, that doesn't work for me. So then I do the second thing, which is I pretty much just leave it, and I go and I have a nice dinner. I watch TV. I watch a movie. Maybe I go and get like coffee or hot chocolate. I just remove myself, and then I just like maybe I remove myself either temporarily for like an hour, or if it's late in the afternoon, I just don't see it till the next day. And the reason is I need to like separate myself, come back refreshed with fresh eyes, and then when I kind of disconnected it, I come back. I see it with newer eyes, and then I'm kind of like I can see things better. I can kind of like, oh, okay, and then I can move forward. That helps. I said
Yeah,
three. That's actually two things. So
I
yeah,
can I can
work
relate
through
to
it.
that so much,
Yeah,
and
I work through it or I don't.
it's funny because that first thing you mentioned uh, doesn't always work. Most of the time, it doesn't work
Hmm.
because but it is the thing I keep doing all the time. It doesn't work. I need to try harder, and you get into this mindset where you're forcing yourself to get a successful drawing um, when it's really the mindset and the way you focus that has to change, and you can't get there from keeping walking in that same direction. So uh,
Yeah,
more and more I'm starting to learn, I have to let go, and it feels like you're doing nothing, but you're actually relaxing your mind and paving the way for success. You have to
yeah,
step back in order to look at it fresh and understand. Sometimes you get back at the drawing and it's like, that's what I was doing, and
yeah,
you don't even it's not even an effort anymore. So it's funny how that
yeah.
works.
Yeah, I mean, I understand we all have a deadline. We all have a small window we got to cram into. But sometimes, and everybody gets it. I get it every day. It's like, sometimes you have, you got your game on. Sometimes you don't, and
Yes.
that's okay. That's just, that happens. So I realized after a while, don't kill yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, take a moment or an hour or some time away, and just, walk away and then come back again. And just like you mentioned, where it's like two things will happen. Either, you'll say like, oh, that wasn't that bad, or what was I
Mm.
thinking? And then it's easier
Yeah.
to edit. It's easier to go forward.
Yes.
It's easier to find out what you do need.
Yeah,
So
sometimes you don't even see that what you're doing is actually pretty good because you're looking at it for so long, and
uh,
you don't even notice anymore what's special about it.
yeah, you're so locked into something, you forget the other ideas or
Exactly.
the main idea. You just kind of you're locking on something, and it may not be what you need to be locked into. So
Exactly, yeah. And it can be a technical thing where, just sometimes flipping the drawing or things like that can already give you a fresh look at it. But
yeah,
sometimes it's more a mental thing, or it's about getting ideas or something, and then, walking away can be a good thing just to freshen up your mind.
yeah,
Let
good.
me see if we have another question. Um, how do you learn to draw from imagination? I know it's a broad question, but what's the starting point? It's what's one of the things I'm struggling with. That's a question from Alakaya. Alakaya, sorry, I'm not going to
Okay.
try to pronounce your last name.
Okay. Drawing from imagination. The good thing about drawing from, well, it all depends on drawing from imagination, what it is. Like, if you're trying to draw something that's familiar but without using reference, you're just kind of trying to remember certain things, like a pose or maybe what someone is wearing or a suit and uniform or building. So there, you're going off memory and you're just kind of doing that. Um, there, it's kind of like you just realize, you're going blind, I guess, no reference, so you're just kind of feeling the drawing. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're just kind of going through the steps. But if you're kind of doing something that is like, I'm not sure if the question is like, are you doing something out of your imagination that's futuristic that you haven't seen yet? Then it's like, well, it's hard to get reference for something that hasn't been seen or done in the future. So it's like, well, there are no rules just yet. The only rules are the logic system you set up. Maybe I'm kind of expanding this more than it should be, the question. But for me, there's nothing wrong with freeform drawing. I call it telephone drawing. Like if
Yeah.
you're on the telephone and you're kind of drawing, what's great is you're just letting the pencil move, and you're so concentrated on the call that you're just drawing, and then after the call, you see this kind of what do you call it, stream of consciousness thing happening, and
Yeah.
and most of the time it's cool because it just kind of flows, and one idea goes into another, or maybe the detail, you weren't thinking about the detail, but you let the details happen. Yeah, so I mean, how to answer that question? I would say, just let it happen.
Yeah,
Don't.
I think from the question, I don't know if that's correct, but I sense that if you know trying to draw from our imagination, it feels to me like you're trying really hard, and I think what you say is exactly right. When you just don't focus on it too much and just start doodling. I know that Mobius did that, just starting to draw shapes and build on that, and it creates these ideas that don't come from consciously thinking about, I'm going to draw a mountain and it has to look like this and this, but you just start drawing shapes and, suddenly a mountain appears and you have an idea like, oh, I can use this next
Yeah.
time in a design. And same for characters, you can just draw a shape and, you can draw a crazy shape and always you can fill it and turn it into a face. For some
Yeah.
reason, doesn't matter how crazy the shape is, you can always turn it into a face. So if you are really struggling with drawing from imagination, try to move away a little bit from trying to make it look realistic and
Mm.
that the construction has to be correct and the anatomy, just start with the fun of it so that at least you feel the joy of it. And
Yeah.
if it's about the ideas of drawing from imagination, because I can see a difference there too. If I have a still life in front of me, I don't have to think what I'm going to draw. I'm just looking and I'm starting to draw shapes and colors and values. But if I have a blank piece of paper and I'm going to draw from imagination, then I have to come up with what it is. So if that's the problem, you can just start with your own life. What are you excited about? What happened this morning? When you go to the supermarket and someone looked at you in a certain way. What do you think about, when you see people try to imagine who they are, and based on what you see, you can as a game for yourself, you can just think, what kind of person is this? What kind of house do they live in? And
Yeah.
already you can start designing. So it can be in really little things, or you can just start by, I'm going to draw this character and I'm going to draw a couple of expressions. How
Hmm.
how would this character look like when he's angry or when he's happy? And
Yeah.
so
I,
it can be the little things.
yeah. I mean, that's such great advice and suggestions. I would add to that. It's like, you know what? When you're drawing from imagination, or even when you started drawing, try and draw without fear. I mean, don't allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself, because don't think of it like you have to look for a perfect drawing or a certain target just yet. Just have fun throwing stuff on paper, and just get loose and just kind of let it happen. And then after a while, once you have a direction to go by or some form of a target, then you hone in on getting all these ideas toward one area. Then you can focus in on, once you have specific information you got to hone in on, then you can kind of shoot in a direction.
Mm.
Don't be scared to put marks on the paper. Don't think of it as perfect or right or wrong. Think of it as weaker and stronger, because weak drawings can always become stronger. Ideas just aren't formulated yet. Everything is kind of brewing, so just kind of like let it happen and just don't worry about it.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that because at a certain point I really had this fear of drawing in a sketchbook because it's not just a drawing but it's in a book, and if this drawing fails, I messed up the book. If you have a problem with that, you can just draw on loose papers. That can be a solution, but um, and I think also draw in a sketchbook that you are not going to show to anyone, because we live in a time where everything is posted online and people have to like it. If you draw just for yourself, just to study, just to learn, the purpose is not to make a $1 million work of art, but the purpose is to take the next step in your art journey. So
Yeah.
then, you have to fail in order to improve, because if you fail, you can analyze what's wrong and do a better job next time. And if you do something that's perfect all the time, you're probably repeating something you already know how to do. So that's something that I would advise too. And I do want to ask you about that, John, about drawing fearlessly, because it's easy for me to give these advices, but for me, I think most of us have that problem where we do care about what the drawing is going to look like, or we want to create something good. And when I see you draw it, it's like I see a 5-year-old, the fun of it. I mean that in the best possible way, because you draw, it looks to me as if you draw fearlessly and you're just having fun. You don't even care. And that's something that I really admire, because that's for me something I would like to have even more, just pure joy. And I was wondering, is that something that has to do with doing exactly what resonates with you? Because I can imagine if you try to be something that you're not, if you try to draw like Pascal Campion, for example, then probably you're going to fail because you are not him. So does it
Yeah.
also have to do that you have found that part in art where you can be yourself completely?
Yeah, it took time to
Oh,
get
that's
to
good.
get there, because just like everybody else, when you start drawing as a student, it's like you kind of look at folks you like, and then all of a sudden you start to emulate them, you start to draw like them. But then after a while, you haven't found your style yet, or you don't, what you're kind of comfortable doing. So that takes time to kind of find yourself in your design. But I mean, for me, I just draw to draw, just kind of. I mean, I love it knowing that. I mean, when I do a design, I do like lots of designs, knowing I don't know what I'm drawing. I don't really know what's happening, but I'm playing in a sandbox. I don't care,
Yeah.
and I know I have this I don't care mode that I go to, knowing that no one's going to see it but me. So when I know that I'm not going to do that, then I feel comfortable. I feel relaxed.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, there are no rules, so I'm just going to have fun. So then I just have fun, and I'll do like pages and pages and pages and hours and hours and hours of just all these drawings. Some of them are like, what? They're my stupid, weak. They have nothing to do with what I'm doing, but maybe they do. I'm just trying to think through something with my pencil. But then after all that, just throwing it down, then there might be one or two things that spark up, and then that's gonna be the starting point of where that gets me going.
Yeah.
But then I had to do that. I can't just do it. I have to struggle to get there.
Yeah.
And that's usually every time I get an assignment, it's usually the first 2 days when I just do that. If I have to do a set design, or I mostly do sets, so if it's a set design, I'll just kind of, I do these thumbnails where, I don't know, let's move the camera, let's do this, and I do reference, let's throw that in. It's like, and it might be something I need to throw in. It may be something out of the blue. I don't really care. I'm just having fun. But then I need to have that fun to get me excited, to get me to the next step.
Yes.
And then after a while, I'll plug in things that I need to put in. And I just have fun. I keep them small, just so I don't spend so much time in real estate, and I'm just throwing shit down until something kind of gets me going. But I need that. I need to know that I can just do it. I'm not there yet as far as I have to deliver things that are pretty, or I have to deliver things on model, or stuff like that. It's like I'm not there yet. I'm working toward that. Right now, I'm just like, well, let's tinker. Let's do this. So, it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to be okay with that system. After when I was younger, I had to I have to do this perfect layout overnight, and it has to be perfect. And ideally, that would be great, but you need to start somewhere and let something grow, and then, play with it, massage it, or just, nurture it and work it till it gets there. There's a process. You got to let it happen.
But then you also allow, if you don't do that and you start, creating that pretty painting based on the first sketch, you you miss out on a lot of possibilities that if you do these small sketches, you can try out a lot of stuff and already see, this is not going to work. This is a good idea. This is where I'm having fun. So, and you can
Yeah.
take all those ideas because you do these small sketches and not focus on creating these beautiful paintings
Yeah.
at the very beginning.
I mean, the goal is to get to the beautiful paintings, but you have to make sure the ideas work,
Yeah, it's
that the
really the
composition's
creative
there.
process.
Yeah, because everything is layered. Everything is layered to get
Yes.
to there.
Yeah, for me, it really helped uh, to think that I'm just showing options, because even when they like a design, for me it feels, well, yes, it's a design, but we could also do this, or we could also do this, or that's my state of mind. So I even when they like a design, I still feel, well, we could make it better, we could change it, and for me it never feels like a finished thing. And uh, I really like the fact that for me that really works, that there's this whole studio doing the rest of the process where they turn it into a final piece. I only have to worry about coming up with ideas and suggestions and designs, and they don't have to be the finished product yet.
Yeah, true. So true.
So let me see, we have another question. So how has the virus affected jobs in the industry? Is there anything graduates should be doing differently? I I'd like to add to that. Do you think also that because you're now working from home, but you have done that for a while already, and it was when I started out, it was pretty hard to work remotely, and
Hmm.
things gradually changed. Do you think this uh, Corona situation might affect the industry in that way, that it would become even easier to work from home?
I think so. Um, I mean, I was lucky enough that I started doing this 5, 6 years ago. So working remotely, and then even working remotely at home, it took me time to get comfortable and kind of get things settled. Now, because of the virus, studios were kind of forced to be in a
Yeah.
situation. Either you sink or swim. Either you stop production or you make production happen remotely.
Yes.
And I think it was a great opportunity because, uh, fortunately, most of us in the industry are still doing what we're doing, and we're doing it from home. It sucks, for some folks because you're not working with a team, you're not working with people next to you. There's that energy there, but now you have to work solo. You're working
Yes.
solo, and it's an adjustment. It's not forever. It's just a temporary thing. But I think what happened was I think it forced a lot of companies, and I think hopefully in reflection, companies now realize it can be done.
Yes.
You know, uh, I think this has been a huge learning curve for most studios. Some studios already we're working with remote folks, but I think to work in a system in a studio-wide setting like this, I think it was a learning curve. But I think it's great because it just opens more opportunities for studios to work with a whole bunch of people from all over the world. I mean, we don't necessarily have to be in the same studio physically, but we can still do the same thing from
Yeah.
wherever we're at toward one thing. I mean, thank goodness that our industry is still
Yes.
going,
Absolutely.
so
Yeah.
we're lucky. I mean,
Yes.
because of technology, we can still do what we do.
Absolutely.
And and I know for some folks they want to go in house, and working in house is important because you need those relationships. You need to be a face in the group. People need to know you and so forth. That's important. And
Yes.
I know after all this is over, yeah, that's going to happen again. But I think what's great is hopefully studios now can take advantage of this, knowing like, okay, they're going to be a lot more comfortable working with folks remotely, and
Yeah.
that means they can work with people all over the world.
Yes. So, and
And
and then part of the question was also, is there anything graduates should be doing differently because of this situation? Do
just means I think it just means working. It just means this new way of working remotely. And you're now working in freelance mode, pretty
Yeah.
much. So that just means you now have to work away from something. You get direction. You're giving and taking away, but you're coming in, and then you got to be disciplined as far as doing a good solid 8 hours, and then finding discipline to turn it off. Work a good 8 hours, 9 hours if you have to, but turn it off. That's not easy. That's a craft you got to develop.
Yes.
But you want to, that takes time. Being organized, as far as, simple stuff as far as like being organized, putting your work, creating a to and from folder, dating everything, your naming devices, creating a regular system, schedule, and so forth. This has nothing to do with the craft, but this has something to do with an artist and a professional to get your craft in the most organized professional way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, when you're freelancing, you're beside an artist, you're also a businessman. So or businesswoman. So you have to take care of that part also.
Yeah, you're out there, and your only job is to deliver. So you want to make sure you deliver good stuff all the time. But you just you should be organized. Somehow, have a system to yourself that helps get you to deliver what you need.
Yes.
And stay motivated. You have to stay motivated too.
Yes, absolutely. And did you have to learn something new when you started to freelance compared to what you did when you worked at Pixar?
First thing was just the schedule, time management, because I sucked. When I was at Pixar, we had production managers who told us when and where what was done and so forth. So we just kind of went off their cues.
Yes.
Well, when you work from home, you still have deliveries to make, but now it's up to you to get there. You have to create a plan to get there.
Yeah.
So now it's like, okay, that took time. It's like, okay, maybe if I have a week to do this, what am I going to do on my first day? What am I doing on my second day, third day? So that just means all these time management things fall on you to figure out to deliver.
Yes.
So it means creating a schedule, being flexible with the schedule, knowing things can change, moving things around, and then finding the discipline to make it happen. So you create little windows in the day. Okay, in these couple hours, I'm going to do this and this, and then I'm going to take an hour break. Always take your breaks, because you need to step away.
Yes.
And then creating little milestones within the day and within the week. It's not just one major deadline. It's all these little deadlines on the week that'll help you get there. And then learning to close your day. And it's not easy, because a lot of young guns, I say young guns, young people, they have this thing where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to work all day and all night and until I get it. It's like, well, that's nice, but that's not really working smart, because you're only getting paid 8 hours, right? So you want to make sure you can still keep that engine running and get all those ideas going, but learn how to do that within this time frame.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, you will be able to do that, but in the long run, you just physically won't be able to live like that, to always work. There has to be a balance.
You're gonna burn out.
Yes.
And
especially if you have a family, you want to spend time with them as well. So there's more to life than just work.
Yeah. So I just it's just that discipline and just kind of, but give yourself time to get there. You're not gonna, again, it didn't take me overnight. It took me like 6 to 9 months to get comfortable with time management.
Okay.
I hated it. I hated it. But then after a while, I was like, I found benefits. Like, oh, I found more time to be at home, to be with family. I found time to do projects. I found time to do more teaching. You learn that there's pros to it.
Yes. Absolutely.
But again, it takes time to do time management. So.
Yeah. There's another question. We talked about this a little bit already. What's your advice for an artist whose fear of failure is holding them back?
I would say I think that's everyone's failure. You're not alone. I feel like I'm talking to them to get them off the ledge. You're not alone. I've been there too. So it's like, it's okay. That's just being human. You have to fail. We don't get it off the bat. We have, failure is just part of getting there. using, I'm just trying to find these big, um, generic, general ways of talking. It's okay to fail. You know, you have to fail. I fail every day, but then it's not really a fail. It's just an effort that got me closer to my target.
Yes.
Think in those terms.
Yes, it's more like acquiring knowledge of,
Yeah.
which is getting me there and which is not getting me there, but
Mhm.
it's all part of getting to that result. And
Mhm.
it's not only the the successful drawing. You can't have that right off the bat. It's like a child that learns how to walk. They fall thousands of times, and every time they get up, and after a certain time, they realize they understand how it works and they can walk. But it took some falls to finally get it.
Yeah, and you need those falls because those falls, it's like falling. It's like riding a bike. It's those cliches where you need to do that to so you can learn.
Yes.
Or it's that quote, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Mm.
And you just have to keep that in mind. It's okay to fail. You're expected to fail. You should fail. Fail as many times as you can
Yeah,
because
I
that's
think
gonna that's gonna get you closer to where you have to be.
Yeah, I think what you just described, the way you work, where you just start drawing and drawing all those ideas and little scribbles and as if no one's watching. I think that is exactly that. You allow yourself to fail because not every one of those sketches is going to be the final drawing that you turn in as this is what I created for this assignment, but it helps you to form your vision or to and so just see it as a part of the process, of getting there. So you can also start with lowering that expectation. If you create a drawing, uh, but let do just scribbles on a piece of paper that's not in a sketchbook, just a white piece of paper, and you do 10 scribbles, whatever you want to draw, the thumbnails of characters or environments, and you just uh, agree that you're going to throw that away. After you did those 10 drawings, you're going to throw it away. And you
Uh-huh.
will you will find that it will be hard to do because probably you haven't failed. If it's really a failure, then it should be easy to throw it away. But you will probably
Yeah.
find that you have some attachment to it, and there are things in there that you do like. So you might not fail as much as you think you do.
Yeah. True. Good. Awesome. Well said. Yeah. I totally agree.
Let's see. Um, Dustin Clark asks, "What favorite project have you worked on?"
That's hard to answer because there's favorite things I like about different projects. I love working on Coco because that was such an awesome experience working with awesome folks. Angry Birds movie was awesome because I learned that was my first job working remotely after Pixar, and I learned so much. And I worked with Pete Oswald; he's awesome. The Scoob movie I just worked with, that was awesome. I was working with Mike Korinsky and such an awesome team, and it was such a fun project. Um, the Kim Possible was awesome because again, great crew. That's when I started learning about storyboard and design. The Tinkerbell movie was awesome. At the time, I hated it, but in hindsight, I loved it because I learned so much. They gave me an opportunity to do these great things, and yeah, I mean, those are just. I really don't have a favorite. There's favorite things I like in each
Hmm.
of my. And I've been lucky enough to work with these movies and great people. So there's little things of each.
Yeah, I can imagine. For me, it's the same thing. It has more to do with the people and elements within that project that you love rather than the project itself.
Yeah, yeah. It's experience too. It's not just the artwork, but I think I remember more the experience of who I was
Mm,
working with and what
okay,
we
yeah.
went through together.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that I like.
Let me see. Um, so let me see if I can find another question. You were talking about social media before. They can be a very positive instrument for artists, but also can add a lot of pressure. How do you balance this?
Um, I would say don't force yourself that you have to put something on social media. Only you should only do it when you're ready. I remember when we were doing Blogger a long
Hmm.
time ago. It was like I think it was like 2007, 2006 when it started, and then it started getting traction, and that was the rage. Back then, first I remember with Sketchbook Sessions, which was this online forum where a whole bunch of artists would post their work, and then Blogger came about, and everybody was excited, and then everybody was posting their artwork, and then some people, and me included, I felt obligated, like I had to put something online. And there's something good about that because it gives you an engine, and something, there's a fire lit under your butt to kind of keep pushing stuff out, and that's good. But then, all of a sudden you found this. It was kind of stressful, and this pressure to kind of keep getting things out. And after a
Hmm.
while, it's like, no, you should only you should kind of ease back and only put something online only if you're happy and proud to show it. Because you have to realize when you put something online, it's forever. So you want to
Yeah.
make sure you're happy with it, you're proud of it, and are you happy and comfortable enough knowing it's going to be there in perpetuity? It's going to be there
Mm.
forever. So it's important to have an online presence as an artist, because all studios, they always want to see your link. So you always want to, keep your link alive, keep it updated. You always want to keep putting in new work. You always revamp it, update it, swap things out, and so forth. And what's more important is as you're doing your day job, always do something for yourself. That's what I tell students. It's like always put something on the side that you can work on personally, even a few sketches, designs, so that way you can add that into the mix as well, and that's your own voice. That's your work that you can add in to the professional work. It's even more importantly for young people to do that because we know when you have your first job, excuse me, when you have your first job, you can't showcase that for a
No.
while because you
Yeah.
signed an NDA. You have to wait till it gets published, if it gets published.
Yes.
So once you start a job, you have to wait maybe a year, 2 years, 3 years until you show it. So you have to show something. Well, do something on the side that grows and demonstrates your current skill sets. So
Yeah, and
just yeah,
I also would like to say before you even start posting, ask yourself why are you, or what is your goal with this? So for me, when I just started out, the goal was to get noticed, so that I wanted, I saw it as my portfolio and uh, connected with a lot of people online, tried to make sure that people knew who I was and the studios could see my work. So I tried to be an online presence as much as I could. But
yeah,
you know, you can ask yourself, do I want to be uh, because if you can be that person, become that person that is everywhere and posts YouTube videos and tutorials and post on Instagram all the time, interact with people, doing live stuff. Uh, but at a certain point, that becomes part of you have to put in the hours to be that. And
yeah,
and maybe YouTube comes to you and you get money for ads or they give you free stuff and that's all great. But you have to make a choice. I think is that where you want to to take it, or do you
sure.
just want to post, a little less to get noticed, or do you just want to post whatever, whenever you feel like posting something that you feel is relevant? Uh, then if it's not regular, then you'll probably have less followers than someone who posts sketches every day.
Yeah,
But is having followers, is that the goal? And you have to make up your mind for yourself why you do this. And if it starts to become feel like pressure, then I don't think that might be the way you want to do this. For me,
yeah,
I don't want this to feel like pressure. So for the longest time, Instagram, I only posted whenever I felt I have something to to show. And
Hmm.
sometimes weeks went by and I didn't post anything. Now I'm trying something new just to see how that works, and I'm planning ahead. So, I actually Loish gave me that advice,
Yeah.
and I think when it comes to social media, she's a good one to take advice from.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm trying now, and I'm not. I haven't decided if this is what I'll keep doing, but
Hmm.
for now, I'll just plan a week ahead what I'll be posting, and at least that week, I don't have to think about anything anymore. It's all scheduled when my posts go out, and that takes off the pressure also because I already know it's been taken care of. Some
Hmm.
posts are for promotion, others are for showing the process, so I know exactly that all those things are covered, and I don't have to think about social media anymore. So just once a week, I have to think about it, and so that's
Yeah.
a it's an interesting way to deal with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a balance. I mean, I think social media, it's like, yeah, it's there for you to post, to put something and blast out, but you want to make sure you're kind of, make sure you, as an artist, you're always putting stuff out that you're proud of and happy and demonstrates what you can. Again, it's for the means. If it's for a job and you're showing people what you can do for the job, then make sure it is what you think it's going to get the response you want for the job. If
Yeah, well,
it's more
that's
like,
actually interesting because I have worked on jobs for where it happened a couple of times where the directors who knew my work and liked my work because they hired me because of the work that I do, but they had never looked at my Instagram.
mm,
So, maybe you're putting all this effort into Instagram, and maybe
yeah,
the people you want to see it aren't even looking there. So that's
yeah,
also interesting.
yeah. I think, and it's funny. I think a lot of young people. I say young people because it seems like I get this question from most young people. There's a lot of pressure to put something on on Instagram or on social media, and it's like, well, you shouldn't. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's there for you, but you shouldn't feel pressure that you always have to keep putting stuff on there. Only when you're ready.
Yes.
Only when you want to. It's there for you. But you
Yeah.
should, no matter what, you should always develop your craft. But you don't
Yes.
have to keep blasting every piece. You know.
Exactly. Yeah, and it takes time to create something, in art, especially when you go to fine arts, if you want to do a painting, it
Mhm.
takes time. So you have to step back and you have to observe the world, and some painters take months to do one painting. So and Instagram has its own pace, but you have to decide for yourself what's your pace. How do you want to deal with this?
Yeah.
Let me see. Um, Nina says, "Hi, Nina and Tiny Air. We love you
Hey,
guys."
how you doing?
um, so I think are there any questions left? Because I think we've talked for over an hour. Let's
Uh,
do one or two more questions. Um,
let's
Rachel
see.
Faye says, "What are some
Oh, Rachel.
essential artworks or projects to include in a portfolio geared towards story?" P.S. Good to see you again, John.
Cool. Hey, Rachel. As far as story, uh, I think I think basically a basic good storyboard portfolio is like you want to include like maybe at least three sequences and small sequences that showcase good storytelling. You're introducing a situation. It doesn't have to. I mean, it'd be nice if there was a small resolution, but that showcases and demonstrates good setup, storytelling, composition, performance. Um, that a character is going through something and then you see what they do, what he or she does and reacts, and how do they resolve it. Um, the number of panels per sequence can vary. I mean, it can be maybe, 50 would be nice, or at least that. Um, there's different ways, there's different things you can put in your portfolio. Story sequences are ideal because obviously that's what you do as a storyboard artist. You're creating little story moments. where you're showcasing someone going through something. It can be little exercises. There's a whole bunch of exercises that people can share that I kind of shared where, there's the fairy tale sequence or the fairy tale exercise where you do a familiar fairy tale like Hans Christian Andersen, Grimm Brothers, nursery rhymes, and you try and break them into 20 panels. So basically, the 20 panels is like, it's not necessarily a storyboard, but you're doing story beats. But that's the same thing as storyboarding. You're creating progression, you're showcasing an introduction, and all these images, will tell the story. And that's an exercise in committing to a moment or what you think is important, and then making sure all those show progression. They kind of are stepping stones toward something you want to get to.
Yes.
That is an exercise. That's hard, But then give yourself deadlines too. That fairy tale exercise, give yourself 2 weeks. Little Red Riding Hood, do that in 20 panels. First week, rough it out. Second week, fine tune it. But keep the drawings rough with energy. Don't tighten them up. Yeah. They should only be clear. Clear means you know what's happening, you know what they're doing, they're expressing. Make sure if you do the 20 panel exercise, start small. Start with, see if you can tell your story in 8 panels. Because 20 panels, when you tell somebody who hasn't done this before, they always say, that's a lot. 20 panels is a lot. I say, all right, do it in 10. So for 10, it's more doable. But then right away, they realize, oh, I need more panels. Okay, add a couple more, Oh, I need a panel in between here to fulfill this idea. Good. Okay, then you'll work up toward the 20. And then you look at it again, and then you go image, and making sure there's progression. What's strong? Is there emotion there? Are we feeling something there? Is the information clear? This and that. That's just the fairy tale exercise. There's other things you want to do, like add a personal story. What's your most embarrassing moment people have done? What's your first kiss? What's your first heartbreak? Have you ever been in an accident? And then try and document that as far as images. Try and do that to 50 or 80 images.
Oh,
so now
cool.
you're going to introduce an introduction. Where were you? What was happening? Where were you going? Who was with you? And there, you're creating a setup, an introduction, and then all of a sudden the incident happens. Oh, my first heartbreak. Well, before you have your heartbreak, first you probably are introducing the person. Do you know him? Do you not know him? Were you guys going together? What escalated the moment? What happened? What happened to that person? Did they leave? Did they, what did you do? That kind of thing. If it was a car crash, well, before a car crash, something happens to lead up to the car crash, and then you show the impact of the crash, and then what happens afterwards. So there's this setup, incident, resolution. What happens after that? There's these bits of information you have to set up. That's storytelling. You're kind of, because if you were telling stories verbally, that's what you do. Oh, guess what happened? One day I was here, I was at the store with my friend, right? And then all of a sudden, blah, 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 and then blah, 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 blah. So you say that verbally. Well, in visual storytelling, we're not there to say that, but we have to set it up with the information. Things escalate to something, and then this and this. So you use composition and performance and so forth. Close-ups when needed to build an impact. Your camera, as far as what you're saying. Some people go crazy with the camera. It's okay to keep things eye level. Every now and then, move the camera back to show more of the world. Only show your save your close-ups when you have more impact. When build up an emotion. You only use upshots and downshots when necessary. You don't have to use an upshot all the time. Because it looks like you're seeing things through a security camera. Only save that for moments. Start looking at film. Start looking at scenes in YouTube. I get it. Nobody has time to see movies. Look at scenes in movies. Study a scene. Scenes are mini movies within a big movie. And within a scene, there's a bit of information there that the director left that he or she wants you to know and feel. Study it. There's usually a setup, something happens, and then something takes away from it. Study that. Look at yourself. Be a film scholar. Start looking at films. Look at films with the sound off, because that way you can focus in on the performance, and you can look at cues and prompts. Someone is like, all of a sudden you have this beginning, they turn, they react, and then they follow through on something. So, consider that performance. That's just focusing on performance as far as like how to build a progression of what you're doing. Look at composition. Don't necessarily tell things flat. Maybe something in the foreground, midground, background, so there's depth. Just look at a lot of films. Be a film scholar. Be a sponge of film. Look at films before CGI, because that way things aren't gratuitously shown to you. Before CGI, directors had to be clever and keep things interesting because they had low budgets, so they had to look at things they had to be more imaginative and more creative as far as how do you keep people engaged and still show what you show. You don't necessarily have to show something; you can imply it. Start looking at that. Focus your eyes on storytelling, films, music videos, documentary shorts, anything, TV shows. Just soak it in, and questions. Just ask yourself questions. What are you getting from it? What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? What were the devices that made you feel certain things? So.
Wow.
I go on, but these are just
You're on fire, man.
I'm just throwing stuff out, but.
No, I think it's really interesting when you started to take your personal experiences, because when writing they always say write what you know, and I think as artists we do the same thing, and even if I would have to come up with a crocodile as a character design, it's based on my experiences, my knowledge of what a crocodile is, and I can add some character to it. Maybe it's my experiences. Maybe I think of my uncle who has a certain personality, and I put some of that in that character. So I draw what I know, and I think you in your explanation was very literal. It's really your first heartbreak. That's something that. If it's your experience, so well how you felt and what went wrong and how you wish you had reacted and things like that. So that's a story that if anyone, you are the one who is able to tell that story. So I think that's great advice to, if you want to start telling stories, to take them so personal. Because that's something that you will be able to bring across.
Yeah, because it's like it's true to you, and it's your experience.
Yes.
Your job as a visual storyteller now is you're trying to bring your experience to someone else's. You're trying to share that. So it's trying to capture the information and, more importantly, the emotion.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
These are just that's storytelling, and it's not easy, but it's not impossible either. Everything takes work. So I just encourage everybody. Yeah, storytelling. Try your hand at storytelling. Storyboarding, story beats, but start looking at film and just kind of, be motivated by that, and inspired by that, and just go for it. And
I think it's when maybe it's just my timeline, but when I see Instagram, my feed, I see a lot of character designers, lots of environment artists, concept art, beautiful painted stuff, but you don't see that much of storyboards. Is that your experience too, or do you have a different feed since you do much more story art?
I see more design. I see a lot more character design, background design, set design, and it seems like storyboards you don't see as much. Even though there's a lot out there, I see a lot more of the other stuff. I encourage people, especially character designers, especially young people who want to do into character design. It's great that you want to be into character design and that you want to be a character designer. That's awesome. The reality is, I want them to know that you can do more than just characters. Because when you go look for a job, you're going to realize being a character designer is very competitive. It's really competitive. If you look at all the shows that are happening right now, of the 500 shows that's happening in the world, if you look at the credits, out of those 500, that means there's 500 slots in the whole world for a character designer. But if you look at the credits, a lot of them, they use the same people over. So that means, some people are taking more than one slot. And that means it's less and less. So that just means it's not impossible. It's just competitive, if you do the math. So it's like, are you just a character designer? No, you can draw characters. That means you can probably draw backgrounds. Some people never gave themselves the opportunity to learn backgrounds.
Yes.
Learn backgrounds. Put a character in a background, and then all of a sudden it starts becoming a visual development piece where you can have your character perform and react in their background. Put two people acting in a background, then it becomes like a theater set.
Yes.
All right. Be creative. Maybe put the camera over the shoulder, so now we have a point of view. Use lighting to focus in on a focal point. Okay. Once you do that, do 5 or 6 of these moments within this scene. So now all of a sudden you have like a mini beat board of this little scene happening where you're like a cinematographer. You're moving the camera and these characters are reacting and so forth. Maybe they're having a discussion, and then the discussion amplifies to a big, huge fight or a revelation or a discovery. Again, use the camera to show that. All of a sudden now you're not just a character designer. You're now a visual development artist using all these tools.
Yes. Yeah, and there are many more story artists and visual development artists on a project than character designers often. So,
sure.
Emma is asking a question. Do you have any exercises or tips to try and portray that emotion well visually in your storyboards or character moments? So exercises or tips to try and portray emotion.
It all depends on what the emotion is. And usually the emotion is there's contrast. You have to have something that turns into something else. An exercise could be this. Have a little boy or a little girl. They're having lunch in the cafeteria, and say they're sad because they're all by themselves. Maybe they're the new kid in class. This is just an exercise. I'm just spitballing here. And all of a sudden, new kid in town sits by themselves. Then all of a sudden, maybe there's this one little kid, boy or girl, comes up and says, "Can I sit with you?" And all of a sudden, the little boy or girl smiles, brightens up. First, maybe they're hesitant, but then maybe they meet a friend. So right away, you create a situation. There's a situation there where someone is sad, but then emotionally they become happy. So there's a contrast there. You want to show that contrast. So, as far as like the question, how do you show emotion? It's the clarity in the expression. You want to show contrast. You want to show or that kind of thing. You want to show something changing, but then you want to show why it's changing. Maybe when I cut and look at something, maybe now the camera changes so you see what I'm looking at. That could be an over the shoulder or a first person point of view, or it's a wide establishing shot where you see everything. It's a choice in camera. It's whatever you think is best to showcase what you're showing in the moment. But yeah, you just want to ask yourself, well, what's the emotion, and what's the best way to show that emotion? Is it subtle? Is it more animated? Is that emotion more cued or synced into what that personality is? Someone who's shy is probably gonna, their emotions aren't gonna be as animated.
Yeah, I would also study animation because when I do character design, I have just one drawing to show that emotion. So I try to portray through the body, the gesture, the outfit, what's going on in the mind of the character. That's basically what I'm looking for to understand, what he's thinking, what he's feeling. And often the way we hold our body, if I come into a room like this, that's different than when I come in like this. Hey, everybody, there I am. Then you just by that gesture, you get an idea of how I feel. And if you look at animation, animators do nothing but that. They use the body of their character to express how the character feels, and sometimes it's really animated. Sometimes the body doesn't do even that much. But for example, if you look at the character designs of Carter Goodrich, I think they're so wonderful because with every drawing, even if it's just a drawing of one character and no environment, you feel like they are in a world, and they interact with something that isn't even there, but you can see them think, and that's something that I always try to aim for. But you can get a lot from the body language.
Yeah, and I mean, what you just said was just point on, dead on, and I think ask yourself, I think who is your character? It's like what type of character are there? Because knowing your character is gonna help better understand how they're gonna react to something.
Absolutely.
Danny DeVito. If I say Danny DeVito, people know Danny DeVito. He's very loud and boisterous and stuff like that. So if he's gonna act embarrassed, how would Danny DeVito be embarrassed? Versus Tim Gunn. Tim Gunn, everybody knows Tim Gunn. So how would Tim Gunn, feel embarrassed? Once you have an idea of the personality and the person, then you kind of have maybe a better guess as far as how they can react to something.
Yeah, I think that's where the fun is. That you can draw a character and you can draw him happy, but to know how this character is happy. If this is a character who is always depressed, and now finally something joyful is happening in his life, that's a completely different kind of happiness than a girl who's bubbly and jumping around and is happy all the time. That you would portray that in a different way. And I think that's where a lot of the fun of character design is, to get into the mind of your character.
Yeah, true.
Okay, let's do one more question.
Okay.
Let's see. Yvonne Goodman says hi.
Hey, Yvonne.
Grecia asks, is there any programs that we should use or start learning for animation for young people like myself?
I don't know. Not really. I use Photoshop. That's all I use. Photoshop and paper.
Real paper, you mean, right?
Yeah. I know some people use Storyboard Pro. I know a lot of folks are using the iPad Procreate, which is awesome. As far as programs, I'm probably a bad person to ask because I just know Photoshop and old school paper.
Same here. But I think well, it is absolutely relevant. At the same time, these things change over time, I think. Paper and pencil aren't going to change much, but that software is probably changing. So I'm not saying that it's not a good question, but because it is relevant, but it may be a little similar to what brush are you using, because in the end it doesn't really matter if you're using pencil or you're working in Photoshop or Procreate. You have to find your way of using the software, but it's more about your ideas and your craft. So I would suggest finding software or a technique that you feel comfortable with, and probably also that is common in the industry. So you can work together with other people. Like everyone knows Photoshop, so that's a good one, and you can use other software as well, but it's probably easier if you also use Photoshop. So that's basically what I would say about that. But I'm not like you. I'm not the best person to ask because I don't animate. So
yeah, I don't either. I think people should know, like, it's not about these tools. They're just tools. I think
yes.
You're the one driving the engine.
Yes.
The tool helps facilitate it, but old school paper and pencil. I mean, if you're a good artist, that's all that matters. I mean, I still draw pencil and paper, and then I scan it in, and then I put it in Photoshop, and I do a paint over. So and most studios are good. They don't really care how you work. I mean, some maybe are specific as like you have to use a certain program, but I think in my experience, most studios, they're comfortable with however you work as long as you deliver.
Yes.
So you want to work with what works for you.
Yeah, Daniel asks, is Procreate being used in any professional environments? I've been using Procreate this week for the first time. Uh, and like you say, I think it's especially because our job is so much at the initial stage of a project that
Hmm.
it's really about the ideas.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter. You can do ballpoint drawings on lined paper, and if it's a good idea and the drawing is clear, then that would be fine too. So it's really about communicating the idea that you have. Um, so okay, this is really the last question. How does how does John warm up to draw every day? What's his process like?
Is it more like what do I like? How does my day begin?
Well, it says how do you warm up to draw? Well,
How do I
maybe
warm up to
maybe
draw?
maybe it's the same.
I usually just kind of, I get up, I try and be at my desk by 9 or 9:30, have my cup of coffee, and I usually just put on my music, and I don't really begin the assignment that I have to. I usually spend like a good hour just drawing, and
Hmm.
I usually start with circles, and then those circles become, I just kind of do these, these really loose compositions, more stream of consciousness. I just, you know, it could be whatever. It could be circles that turn into something else, squares. I'm just warming up. I just kind of just like anybody else scribble, and I keep them small. I mean, I always do small. I don't really do big because my ideas change. So I'm like something small, then I do something. So I at the end of an hour, I have all these
Hmm.
like little thumbnails.
So I would think that warm up is necessary for you to when you start on the job, that you're loosened up, and it's basically like a dancer stretches and stuff.
Yeah.
Would you consider that part of the 8 hour that you work, or is that something you feel like you do for yourself?
It's kind of included. I mean, I try and if I had it, yeah. I mean, that's a good way of kind of describing it. It's like stretching out. It's like conditioning. It's like, oh, it's warming up. So yeah, I would like include that, and then I just kind of when I feel good and ready, then I kind of go on in because now I'm loose. It's like figure
Yes,
drawing.
exactly.
The first hour sucks. The second
Yeah.
hour, you're getting the cobwebs out. The
Yes.
third hour, you're in the zone. So I
Yes.
need to try and get into the zone as best I can. So it's easier for me to, I hopefully get things out.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, yeah. I mean, maybe with that first hour, I would include it in the 8 hours. Sometimes I don't, but I just need to, I need to stretch out in some way.
Yes. Okay. Well, that we've talked way longer than an hour.
I'm
Um,
sorry,
no, no,
Rod.
no, no. I'm
Yeah,
happy. I'm happy we
I'm
did.
so sorry.
I just wanted to ask: is there anything uh, you're working on right now? You want people to know about workshops? Anything? Uh,
Right now, I'm working for Alcon Entertainment on a project. Unfortunately I can't say at the moment. I have to probably. It won't be maybe until a year until I can announce it. But it's an awesome project with an awesome crew. I'm working back with Pete Oswald, who I love working with. He's awesome and just a great crew. So I'm doing that. I'm still working on my book, my about a cat who has adventures. So that's ongoing still. As far as workshops. Unfortunately, nothing on the horizon, and because of what we're dealing with, I don't think I'm going to be traveling this year.
mm,
I think I feel more comfortable just, staying laying low and just, using this time just to work on my projects. But next year, I'm hoping to go back and travel. I know next year, me and my family are planning to go back to Italy, to Florence, for the summer and hopefully I can go back and visit all those great places I have the good opportunity to visit. I would love to go back to Ireland. I would love to go back to London and all these other places. I mean, but that's in the future. So,
yes.
but right now I'm just so happy, just kind of laying low and just doing my thing.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
but
keep,
yeah, but Wouter, I just thank you so much for this. Thank you for inviting me to talk and just just sharing all this. This has been awesome.
Oh, thank
And
you,
I
thank you.
I always love hanging out with you.
Oh, thank you. The pleasure is mine, and thank you for being so honest and open and sharing all these things with us. I'm absolutely sure people love this. So thank you very much, and
Thanks, man.
let's
Thank you so much.
sign
And
off.
yeah,
And
signing off. Just wishing you love to Nina and Ty and everyone else. Just love and well wishes. Stay safe, and we'll all get through this.
yes,
So we can
absolutely. Okay.
go.
Bye bye.